Welcome everybody to another edition of Feeding Value brought to you by BioZyme and Superior Livestock. Today I have my good friend Rod Weeden with me. I'm John Jeffrey with BioZyme. Rod and I have done business together for years, and Rod runs a feed yard at Elkhart, Kansas, Cow Creek Feeders. And to kick off our conversation, let's just start with cattle types and variations and what that's like in terms of doing what you do on a daily basis and what you can do to add value to those cattle when there's a lot of variation in them.
So our yard is a small 12,000 head yard. Sometimes that seems like very small, but it gives us options that we can do things that a lot of the big yards cannot do. Therefore, we also tend to see higher variations of cattle. We take weaning calves in where most commodity feedlots do not. We'll also feed some commodity 8-9 weight cattle also. The differences that I guess we see is we have a full table of everything that comes through our yard. We feed some Holsteins. One of the biggest thing that we have always seen in our line of work is that to get an animal healthy, the nutrition is what's really important to get those cattle to a good start. Calves that don't start well, don't feed well, usually end up losing money. Therefore, it's very important to us to try to start on a nutrition level to get these animals to eat right away, get started, and get a good start, and that'll keep them healthier. And as we use our vaccines and implants and things on these cattle, they just develop into a healthier animal that gain quicker, faster, which intends normally to make us more money.
So not only do we see a variation in weights and kinds and breeds, let's talk about the variation you see on the different types of cattle that you get that come in. If they come from one ranch raising set of cattle that may be on a different nutritional plane versus some cattle that are put together out of the sale barn, talk about from that perspective, from a nutritional point, once you get the cattle coming in, how important it is that they come from somewhere that's on a really good mineral program.
So as we buy sale barn cattle, we always have the idea in our mind that your best calf is equal to your worst calf, because you have to treat every calf in that group as equal to the best or the worst. And the worst calf is the one that's going to be sick, not going to eat. So you've got to try to do everything you can at that point to get those calves to come to the bunk and eat. Sale barn cattle are a lot tougher than off of a ranch. There is no doubt about that for us to start. We got to baby them, give them some TLC, and do some things that we do in our line of work just to try to alleviate the stress from those cattle. We bed them, where a lot of places do not bed cattle, but we will always bed cattle, whether it's wintertime or whether it's summer, because the ground's hot. It's just as important to keep that animal at a cool temperature as it is to keep them warm. And so by doing that, what we see with the ranch cattle, if they've come from a program where they've had a good mineral program, their immune system seems to be a lot better, more ready to go acclimate to our feed and get started in our yard. And it just is a step up. I mean, it's a big leg up to have a good calf that's started well on mineral and ready to go. So, but there is a huge difference between the sale barn cattle and ranch cattle.
For sure. So it seems like at least once a year, Superior will have a panel of folks that speak at one of the sales, and they always talk about being on a quality mineral program and how important that is to help them get those calves started and for those calves to be healthier. So that kind of brings us to our products and your utilization of them. And we know there's a big difference between a mineral program and a value-added premium mineral program like BioZyme brings to the table. When I started here at the company, our cattle ranch, I gave you some, and I kept asking, have you used it yet? Have you used it yet? And you're like, no, but I will. Finally, you did, and you did what everybody always does, typical deal. Where did you try it first? Tell that story.
We tried it in the worst sick, dying animals that we thought we had like maybe a 10% chance to live, because we figured, okay, it's a free product. You know, everybody has a product that's going to do magic to them. So, yeah, let's try it on these. You know, it's a last shot deal. It's either get better or die. And we gave it to those calves, and that was about 7 a.m. when we ran those cattle through and redoctored, and come back, and I'm looking at them and kind of looking over the pen, and at 10 a.m., these 5 head of cattle that were easy to pick out because of what they were, they're standing at the bunk, lined up, eating. And I called you then and said, "You're not going to believe this." And you said, "Oh, yes, I will." So,
Exactly.
yeah, so made a believer out of me, because I figured if it would work on those animals, it'll work on everything.
So then what happened from there? What did you start doing?
So on all of our light, high-stress cattle, we use VitaCharge on every animal that comes in the yard. That's our process, that it's just in there, and that's what we're going to keep doing, because it gets some calves a good start. They come to the bunk, and the main thing, to getting a calf started good is you got to be able to get him to eat. If he won't eat, he's not going to be healthy. He's not going to do very well. So that's what we're after, is to try to get him started as quick as possible, and that product has helped us a bunch.
So let me ask you this question. So I know that you have some cattle that you turn outside. You've used our mineral. You know what the product, what AmeriFerm brings to the table within the feed yard. What would it mean to folks when they would see our badge at Superior on cattle that would be for sale? Tell folks what they should expect based on your experience with what you've seen it do for you, just starting it. Once you get them, what should they expect to buy a set of cattle they know are coming to their facility? They're going to come off a truck. What's that going to mean to them?
Well, in our experience, what we've seen is that those cattle already have a better immune system in them because of the mineral products that they've been eating. And there's a night and day difference with how your vaccines work on those animals after they've been on a good program. They just don't tend to get as sick as fast, and if they do get sick, they tend to respond on your first doctoring. And we have less chronics by that. And that is the biggest thing that we see there. It's just they get started better, less medicine in them, which of course means less money out of our pocket into the animal, gives us just a better chance to make money at the end.
And when you buy a product from us, you get 2 things in the bag. You get the high quality mineral program, and you get AmeriFerm. So we're an added value company that adds more value to the delivery mechanism that we're supplying to that animal with our mineral with AmeriFerm in it. Okay, so what are some of the things that you've seen, and how have you tried AmeriFerm? We talked about starting cattle, talked about them, gaining faster, healthier, but you had a unique spin on something that you did in the feed yard that you tried to see what would work. And you talked about those bigger cattle that you get that come in. Talk about that and what your experience was with that as well.
So what we noticed on that was we fed AmeriFerm all the way through the finishing period on some cattle just to see how that was. And so the biggest thing that we noticed right away was the feed conversion. Our feed conversions have been excellent by using the AmeriFerm. And as you and I had talked before, when you have a product, and we're also adding rumensin with that, so you're kind of, and it's on a prolonged feeding period. So normally the AmeriFerm really changes that gut right away up front, gets them healthy, gets them going, but it continues to work the whole feeding period and makes them more efficient. It's just harder to put a dollar sign on and say, that is what exactly changed this to make it work so good. So we have stopped feeding AmeriFerm all the way through the feeding period.
When it's light cattle all the way through.
Yes. But on the big cattle, what we're doing is everything in our yard gets started on at least 3 weeks of AmeriFerm to get started in the yard. And by doing that, we've just seen, like I said, these cattle acclimate fast, get started, eat our ration at the bunk, because normally the cattle have been eating something totally different than when they come to our feed yard. Because, we have a flaked corn, silage, wet distillers, and then we're using cane hay as our dry roughage in that. And that's usually totally different than what those cattle were eating. A lot of these cattle were coming off of grazing, grass or wheat, rye pasture, something like that. So a totally different deal. So we're not only are we stressing them by hauling them, now you've changed everything that was on their diet, and now we need to try to level that out and get things going so that they can take off and grow and gain well for us. And that really helps.
So the thing I found unique was that what we see when we start those little cattle and that get them on feed faster, we know through research and trials that we've done within the first 50 days, cattle with Amaferm in their diet versus not can be almost 25 to 30 pounds bigger at the end of 50 days. But what was so fascinating for me was when you implemented Amaferm in the diet for the bigger cattle and fed it continuously to them up to slaughter, the feed efficiency advantage you even found in those big cattle, and benchmarked against peers within the industry of other feed yards, how much more efficient you could feed a big animal.
Yes, it was huge.
And so that's really something that we've never actually done a research project to look at, but it's real world stuff that you're doing. We have a lot of research in feed yards using whole and cracked corn, but we don't have any steam flake data. But that's something that we're certainly looking forward to doing and providing that information to the industry. What's the value to you when you talk about healthy, efficient pounds?
Well, if we have to doctor a calf, almost every treatment that we use up front is going to be at least $40. So if we have to doctor that calf, you're just going to reach out and take $40 of profit away from him. So if we can keep from doctoring that animal and keep him healthy, and you take that in a pen of 200, and if you doctor 25%, that's a lot of dollars out of that pen of cattle that was spent for medicine. Now, granted, it's something that you have to do. There will always be some cattle get sick, and you have to treat them. But like I said earlier, a lot of these cattle, by using this product, we're not having to double treat, triple treat, and then you have a chronic. And then you essentially have a calf that you're going to rail, and the value of a railer compared to a fat animal might be a tenth of what his real value would be worth otherwise. So it's really huge to have a calf that comes in healthy, ready to go, so that we don't have to spend a lot of dollars on medicine. And of course, all consumers are all worried about, what we're going to eat and the medicine that we put in these animals, which that's fine, but as producers, we try to make sure that everything that we do to make that animal profitable for us also benefits the consumer.
Yep.
Because
keeping animal welfare in mind.
Absolutely. And I've always had the idea of I like to eat well, and what we produce, we want a wholesome product to produce for other people to eat healthy and have beef on their table. And I think this is a good way to start.
Right, and our company motto is the care that comes full circle. So we care about the animals, we care about the people that produce those animals, and we care about the consumer. We want them to have a wholesome, healthy product to consume once it hits their kitchen table, on their plate, or when they dine out with their family. So we talked about the fact that Amaferm gets cattle on feed faster. They gain more initially, for sure, when we start cattle. And then you touched about the health. So we know that Amaferm also affects overall intestinal health. 70% of our immunity comes through our intestinal tract, whether it be you and I, the family dog, or the cattle that we're producing either out on grass or in a feed yard or grow yard. So when we talk about feed additives that can have that much impact across the board, and for what it costs to utilize, if we just look at Amaferm by itself, the value proposition, we typically say it's about 4 cents a head a day at a 2-gram consumption. When we talk about our mineral products, we say that $5 of the cost of a bag of our mineral is associated with Amaferm. So from managing a feed yard in the perspective of managing a budget and trying to manage the health on these cattle and utilize the things that you have available for health, talk about a 4-cent investment per head per day, equate that back to that $40 you talked about before. What would you say in terms of rough figures that would be in terms of return on investment or more value added or savings back into the pocket of your operation?
Well, we're spending 4 cents a head a day. If we can keep the animal from being sick, and along with that, we also get the feed efficiency that's added into it. Feed efficiency is a huge thing on the feedlot end. A lot of cattle, will perform at, 6.5 pounds of feed to 1 pound of gain. We've been able to, with the VitaFerm products, go in and end up with getting a lot of cattle in that 5.7, 5.8 range. And so if we're looking at,
Especially those big cattle that we talked about.
and if we're at 0.3 of a gain better on the same amount of feed, then, man, that's a lot of savings. So
And
your
it-
4 cents goes away really fast with ration prices today.
And the same applies back to the little cattle that you start. Same scenario, just a little different way to look at it. Sometimes folks forget we concentrate so much here on the fact that, the cow industry pulls our cart, but we make products across the board for all livestock species. We have our Vitalized line of products for companion animals, horses and dogs. We have our DuraFerm products for goats and sheep. We have products for swine, poultry. We have our Backyard Boost products for the backyard chicken folks. So we really offer a whole line of different products as delivery mechanisms for AmeriFerm that you can go to your local feed store and buy. Let's just talk about the show industry, and you've had some experience with show pigs as well. I think you've probably used our Sure Champ product in some of those as well. Talk about how folks that are maybe showing livestock and actually have cows or things at home, they use our products there, and if they know they work there, why do you think there's a challenge to transition to say, well, if it works here, why can't I just use it at home every day in what I'm doing in my cows?
Well, when they have a show animal, everybody expects to spend more for the show animal, see? So that's
right.
part of it. So, and then, everybody wants to, as we all think, okay, this is the cow herd. They've got to make us money. The show animal wasn't intended to make money. That's a learning experience. Everybody's trying to do this to get out there and to put their best foot forward. So you throw everything at that animal you can.
But we're willing to spend more money on something that's not going to make us any money versus spending on something that will.
Exactly. But so you get to the cow herd, and the cow herd is you're always trying to pinch pennies to make that cow herd make you money. But like I said, to me, I look at if 4 cents a day putting something in an animal is going to bring back 25 to 30 cents, it's out of trade I'll make every day.
Yes, and like back to we've talked about before, all our research, when you start putting dollars to it, typically it's at least a 3-to-1 return. So it's very important to think about those things. And with the economic climate that we're in currently and the cost of grain and everything going up, having a feed additive like AmeriFerm in your mineral program or in your feed, the magnification of what it brings to the table in terms of more value is huge. We talk a lot of times about the worst time to cut corners is when things are tough, and you talked about penny pinching. It's probably not always really smart to think about pinching pennies, because what do we sell? What's our goal in the cattle industry or swine industry? It doesn't really matter. You could be raising sheep or goats to sell is what? Pounds, correct? When you cut corners, what's going to happen to your productivity or your pound? So maybe cutting corners isn't always the right way to think about things to add more value or make more money for your operation.
Old saying that when you're bending over picking up pennies that you've dropped, dollars are flying out of your pocket.
Yeah, and
kind of fits to that scenario.
Yep, for sure. So, hey, Rod, thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation. We thank you for your business. We thank you for your friendship. Thanks for spending the day with us to talk about the value that we bring to the producers and the care that comes full circle. And we look forward to a bright future and continue to do business and adding more value to your operation.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks, again for tuning in to this edition of Feeding Value. We look forward to you tuning in to some other editions coming your way this spring. Everybody be safe and happy trails.